The 12th of March, 1938. German troops cross the border with Austria and invade the country without firing a single shot. They are not met with armed resistance, but with cheers and flowers. While thousands of Austrians turn out to greet Adolf Hitler as he travels first to Linz and then on to Vienna, terrified Jews, leftists, and other opponents of the Nazi regime race towards the country's borders, hoping to reach them before they are closed, but most would become trapped in a rapidly Nazifying Austria. In the weeks that follow, there is pogrom-like violence across the country. Austrian Nazis and others beat up, attack, and humiliate the Jews. They force them to scrub the streets, clean public toilets, and perform humiliating exercises. Many decide to try to leave Austria, and lines appear at consulates across the city of Vienna. However, not all Austrians support the Nazis, and those who dare to criticize the regime will often pay the ultimate price for their defiance of the Führer. One of them is the Franciscan sister, Maria Restituta Kafka. Maria Restituta Kafka was born as Helene Kafka on the 1st of May 1894 in Husovice near Brno, then part of Austria-Hungary. She was one of 7 children of Anton Kafka, a shoemaker, and his wife Maria Stechlik. When she was 2 years old, her family moved to Vienna. At the age of 15, she had a wish to become a religious sister, but her parents were against it, so at 17, she became a salesgirl in a tobacco shop. For 2 years, as a cigarette and tobacco seller, she got to know people and their needs, and the more she listened to others, the more she wanted to be helpful, especially to the sick. Thus, in October 1913, despite her parents' disapproval, she became a nurse at the municipal hospital in the Linz neighborhood of Vienna. While working as a nurse, Kafka met members of the Franciscan Sisters of the Christian Charity, and the following year, at the age of 20, she entered their congregation. Maria was given the religious name of Maria Restituta, after the 4th century martyr Restituta. After her completion of the novitiate and her profession of simple vows in the congregation, Maria returned to work at the Linz hospital. She became a highly skilled theatre sister who became known for her strength of will, her sense of fun, as well as her care of the sick and the poor. Because of her stubbornness, people called Maria Sister Resolute. Mostly, however, she was easygoing and funny, and was well known for her customary glass of beer in the evening, enjoyed with a steaming bowl of goulash after a long day in the hospital. Maria remained in the hospital until 1919, when she was transferred to a hospital in the suburban town of Mödling, eventually becoming its leading surgical nurse. When in January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany, he fully intended to bring about an Austro-German union. However, Germany was not immediately militarily and diplomatically ready to carry out Hitler's foreign policy goals. First, Hitler and other Nazi leaders focused on establishing a Nazi dictatorship. However, behind the scenes, the Nazi leadership began planning territorial expansion and a European war as soon as they took power. Beginning in May 1933, the Austrian Nazis waged a propaganda and terror campaign which was encouraged and funded by Germany. The Nazi goal was to undermine the regime of the Austrian Chancellor, Engelbert Dollfuss, by making it look incompetent. They staged disruptive protests and brawled with political opponents and the police. Austrian Nazis set off explosives and tear gas bombs in public places and Jewish-owned businesses. On the 12th of June 1933, in Vienna, one of the bombs was thrown into the jewelry shop of Norbert Futterweit, who was of Jewish descent. As a result of the bomb explosion, Futterweit was instantly killed, and there were several people badly injured at the store and on the street. Futterweit's murder was one of the attacks that led to the ban of the Austrian Nazi Party and its affiliates on the 19th of June 1933. However, although the Nazi movement became illegal in Austria, the Austrian Nazis continued to operate illegally within the country. In March 1938, Hitler threatened an invasion and ordered Wilhelm Keitel to conduct military maneuvers near the Austrian border to make it appear an invasion was imminent. Dollfuss's successor, Austrian Chancellor Kurt Schuschnigg, resigned from his office on the 11th of March, and the Austrian Nazis took over the country without firing a single shot. The Anschluss, as it became known, took place over 3 days between the 11th and 13th of March 1938. The Nazis then launched a crusade against the church and confiscated property, closed Catholic organizations, and sent many priests to Dachau. Anger at the treatment of the Church in Austria grew quickly, and in October 1938, the first act of overt mass resistance to the new regime took place. A rally of thousands left Mass in Vienna, chanting "Christ is our Führer," before being dispersed by police. After Cardinal Theodor Innitzer denounced Nazi persecution of the Church, a Nazi mob ransacked his residence. The Mödling hospital was not spared the effects of the 1938 Anschluss. Kafka was very vocal in her opposition to the new regime, which had immediately begun to implement the Nuremberg Laws, established by the Nazi Party in Germany upon its acquisition of power. She called Hitler a madman, and said of herself that a Viennese cannot keep her mouth shut. When a new hospital wing was constructed, Kafka kept to traditional Catholic practice and hung a crucifix in every room. The Nazi authorities demanded that the crosses be taken down, threatening her dismissal, but she refused. The crucifixes were not removed, nor was Kafka dismissed, since her community said that they could not replace her. During the following years, Kafka refused to give preference to Aryan patients over non-Aryans, and she dictated 2 texts critical of the regime. The surgeon Lambert Stumpfel, a member of the SS, denounced her, and on the 18th of February 1942, while coming out of the operating theatre, Kafka was arrested by the secret state police, the Gestapo, and accused not only of hanging the crucifixes, but also of having dictated a poem mocking Hitler. On the 29th of October, 1942, the Nazi People's Court sentenced Maria to death by guillotine for favoring the enemy and conspiracy to commit high treason. The authorities offered to release her if she would leave the convent, but she refused. When a request for clemency reached the desk of Martin Bormann, Adolf Hitler's private secretary and head of the Nazi Party Chancellery, he replied that her execution would provide effective intimidation for others who might want to resist the Nazis. Before her execution, Kafka spent 1 year, which was the rest of her remaining days, in prison, where she was noted for caring for other prisoners. During this period, she wrote in a letter from prison, "It does not matter how far we are separated from everything, no matter what is taken from us. The faith that we carry in our hearts is something that no one can take from us. In this way, we build an altar in our own hearts." A communist inmate said of her behavior in prison, "She exuded a special strength. What she said was believed. Her honesty, openness, and directness was simply unique. The influence Sister Maria Restituta had on the other inmates was truly great, based on her humanity and what her personality exuded." Restituta Kafka was 48 years old when on the 30th of March 1943, she was beheaded in the Vienna Regional Court. Despite the Church's wishes, the body was not handed over to the religious community, but was instead thrown into a mass grave and never recovered. However, Sister Maria Restituta Kafka is not forgotten. Instead, her bravery is honored to this day. On the 21st of June 1998, on the occasion of Pope John Paul II's visit to Vienna, Kafka was beatified, becoming the first virgin martyr of Vienna. Maria Restituta Kafka, the only religious sister to be formally condemned to death in the area of the Greater Germanic Reich, was commemorated in Rome on the evening of the 4th of March 2013 in the Basilica of St. Bartholomew on the island with a liturgy of the word at which Cardinal Christoph Schönborn presided. During the service, the Franciscan Sisters of the Christian Charity handed to the Basilica a small cross which Kafka had worn on the belt of her religious habit. The relic was placed in the chapel there, which remembers the martyrs of Nationalist Socialism. There were many tears shed for Maria Restituta Kafka. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.